So our timer is currently correctly counting off the minutes here for us. Before we go any further, I just want to do a quick update on state, or a quick refresh on it, just to make sure we're on the same page. Again, it's something that is confusing to wrap your head around, and all the little idiosyncrasies. It is something that you acquire with time, though I am quite sure that throughout the course of all these videos, as long as you go through them all, you'll get a pretty darn solid grasp. So again, the purpose of state is to record user interaction. And by record user interaction, sometimes I mean that a little bit indirectly. We don't necessarily always tap that the user clicked on a start button, but clicking on the start button modified our state. So you can kind of think of our state as a reflection of where the user is in using our app. We defaulted our state by providing the function getInitialState, and from it we returned a plain object that had one value, time elapsed, and we defaulted that to null. We almost always want to default our state values to something like null. So, null, empty string, 0, true, false, just some very baseline predictable value. Next, we updated our state by calling this.setState. As a reminder, we never ever update our state by calling this.state.time elapsed equals, new date or whatever. This will break our application very quickly, and it's something that we should never do. Every time that we call setState, our component re-renders, and so re-renders on the screen of our device. By calling time elapsed and then saying new date minus start time, our time elapsed value is going to be updated once every 30 milliseconds with some new elapsed amount of time. Because calling setState causes our component to re-render, our render function will be called again, which is our opportunity to update the view with some new information. In this case, we referenced time elapsed, which is a millisecond value, and we passed that to format time. Format time just took that millisecond value and turned it into a minute, second, millisecond, readable value for us. So anyways, nice little refresher on state. In this section, let's continue ahead, and what we're going to be doing here is cleaning up our styling just a little bit so that our start button and our lap button look a little bit better. Also, we're going to address the timer, and let's start with the timer first. So on the timer, let's go ahead and add a new style to our styles at the bottom, and we're going to call this style just simply timer. And we'll set the font size to 60, make it just nice and big and legible. We'll go back up to the text element that's showing that text, and we'll say styles.timer. Let's go ahead and refresh, and cool. So nice and large, just what we wanted. I'm going to refresh so the timer isn't just constantly running. Gets a little distracting sometimes. Okay, next we're going to work on our two buttons here. The two buttons are both going to look similar, but they're also going to be a little bit different, right? We want them to both look nice and round, have a border, but we're probably going to want to end up having different coloring for the start button as opposed to the lap button. So there will need to be a little bit of a difference between the two. Let's first add the styles. We're going to add style equals styles.button to our touchable highlight. Next, on our lap button, and we haven't replaced this with a touchable highlight yet, but we will shortly, we'll say style equals styles.button. Next, we'll define the button style at the bottom. So we'll do comma, button, and both of these are going to get some pretty boilerplate content here. We're going to do border width of 2, so they're going to have a nice border. We're going to set the height and the width directly on them. So this is where we start to move away from positioning items using Flexbox and we start to set fixed widths and heights of them. And this is just to make sure that the content on this, or we at some level we are going to eventually need to set fixed heights and widths on here. So we'll set our border radius of 50. This is going to make the button up here rounded. And then even though I just said that we're going to move away from Flexbox for this component, we are going to set justify content to center and align items to center. And the thought process here is actually pretty straightforward. We want to make a round, nice big view, right? We want it to be 100 pixels tall, 100 pixels wide, and we want it to be a circle. The text, however, inside of it, we do want it to be centered. So we're going to continue to set justify content and align items to center. So let's refresh this. Looks like I've got a syntax error. I probably forgot a parenthesis or a comma, which is right there, right after justified content. All right, so we got our nice big circle on here. This is looking pretty good. Now, remember, I did mention that we're going to want to have slightly different styles between the start button and the lap button. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll add another style of start button, and we'll give it a border color of green. So CC00. So 00 CC00. Then we'll go back up to our start button, and we now have two styles that we want to apply to the touchable highlight. So again, we're going to wrap this in array, and the second style we'll add on as styles dot start button. Let's refresh, and cool, it's looking pretty good. So we got our nice green border on here. Finally, I think that we got our layout, it's pretty darn pat. I don't think that we probably need the borders on here anymore. So let's go through and just do a little bit of code cleanup and remove all the borders that we've been setting. So down here, we're going to remove the border function. Don't forget the comma above it. And then this part's going to be a little bit of a hassle, but we're going to remove all the references to this dot border. So I think we've got 4 of them right now, so make sure you get all the way up to 4. So we'll remove this one. You can leave the array in or remove it. There's really no difference. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it in right now in case we need to add any more styles later. Actually, you know what? Let's keep our code clean. We're going to remove the array as well. So all of our styles should be looking pretty plain now. And there we go. So really planed up our syntax here. Pretty straightforward. Go ahead and save and make sure you can refresh without getting any syntax errors. And also notice that, sure enough, we don't have our borders on the page anymore, which is exactly what we wanted. Okay, so starting to look pretty good. Let's continue into the next section.